2023 special meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 5:30 p.m. For this meeting, there is a quorum of council present. Item number 2, the citizens forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city council members or employees, as well as individual persons' appeals, are not appropriate for the citizens forum. If necessary, the city council may convene an executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any items on this agenda. The public forum is now open. If there is anyone who wishes to address the council, please state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, the forum is closed. Item number 3, receive presentation, discuss and provide direction on the FY 2023-2024 budget of the City of Paris. Mr. Path.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, thank you for taking this time tonight on Tuesday night, a special meeting to meet to discuss the proposed fiscal year 23-24 budget. I got a few slides for us to go through tonight, and we'll start that now. So, just kind of a little bit of an overview before we get started here. The purpose of this is again, to present my proposed 23-24 budget to you, is to answer questions. Please, I like to just say up front, if you have questions, please interrupt at any moment. Don't try to wait to the end. I'd love to be able to answer your questions as you have them. So please don't be hesitant to ask questions as we go through here tonight. With this, in order to be responsive to your questions, I have asked all of our department heads to be here tonight. So superintendents, supervisors, department heads, I'd like to thank all of them for being here tonight, and so taking time out of their schedules to be here for us. Particularly, and the purpose for that is so that I'm going to try to answer your questions, but in case there's a question I cannot answer, we have the experts here in the room that can help with that, because we want to be timely for your questions. We want to be able to help you quickly as you're considering the proposals tonight. So tonight I'm going to do a summary of the memorandum I sent to you here a couple weeks ago. So we're going to go through that kind of just high level, hit some key topics out of the memorandum. Then we're going to do a summary of the department budgets. As you'll recall, the last few years, typically we have our first Monday meeting is typically before this meeting, but given the way dates fell this year, that's not till the 14th, and I didn't want to ask y'all to wait that long to get this process started. I didn't want to time crunch you too much. So we're basically combining 2 meetings into one tonight. So we'll be doing the summary of the memorandum that I sent, as well as summary of the department budgets tonight. And then at the very end, we'll talk about next steps. I'll see what you want to do next. I'll gather your input and discuss possible options for going forward. I do have a request, as we go through the budget here, if any individual council member has a request about what you want to see edited, changed, just so I have good clarification, I would ask at least have at least a general consensus before I go to changing the budget, or if necessary, if there is opposing views, maybe a vote. That way I have clear direction if you want to see something changed, added, taken away. At least I know that the council as a whole is behind that. Instead of having individual meetings about changes or edits to the budget outside the meeting here, because I don't want to ever get in between views on what should or should not be in the budget. So that's my one request, is if we do have edits or to make, there at least be a general consensus, or if there's not, a vote. That way I have clear direction of what needs to be done. All right, memorandum. Back on July 25th, I sent to you my proposed city manager 23-24 budget. It's executive summary of the different requests. Under City Code 19 sub.3, the power of the City Council is to adopt the budget, and my duty as manager is to prepare that budget to present to you. So that's what I've been doing the last almost 4 months, working with staff and doing that process. Now in that memorandum, you saw there's a number of exhibits there, lengthy documents there. Exhibit A, of course, being the proposed revenue line by line for all the departments. Exhibit B being the thickest document, being all the expenditures for line by line for the departments. Exhibit C, payroll. D, debt. E, pay scale. F, organizational chart. And then G and H, this is a new addition to our process. As you recall, City Council passed a new strategic plan, and so we've added that part of the process here. As the policy dictates in that strategic plan, I am to provide to you an update on the current year's capital outlays and tasks that we have for task action items for the strategic plan. And then I also present to you a proposed strategic plan for next year, so that you have that in your packet there. Most all of these are dictated by the charter. As you saw in my memorandum, the charter really lays out what I need to present to you, so that's how I try to draft my memorandum, and that's where most of the exhibits come from. So getting right to it, probably the most important piece that most citizens are concerned about. Of course, everyone's concerned about either tall grass or potholes or water lines, but the general consensus of most citizen is, what is the property tax rate? That's what usually the concerns come about is in regards to the rate. Now, to properly explain this, you have to understand that while there is one property tax rate, is divided into two categories. There is your maintenance and operation, which is the funds, the revenue we use to fund our general fund, the parks, streets, library, those funds. Then you have your debt levy, which is the part that goes towards bonded indebtedness. As you'll see later on in my presentation tonight, there is SB 2, which was passed in 2019 by the legislature, that puts limitations on the M&O side of things. It does not put limitations on the debt side of things. And so, but again, looking here, you see an analysis of the last several years. Getting down to 23-24, the budget I propose to you has a M&O of 32 cents, a debt of 15 cents for a total of 47 cents. You'll see that is an increase from the last 2 years. I will explain that as we go a little further along here tonight. You see that the M&O has dropped. We've gone from 39 cents, 37, 34, down to 32. Debt has been 8, 8, 9, and now 15. Total of 48, 45, 44, up to 47. And I'll explain that as we go along here. Again, to the best of Mr. Anderson and my ability, this meets SB 2 requirements. There is a lengthy calculation. It's 80 different calculations you have to go through in order to get down to the final rate per legislation. So, to the best of our ability, we have met those requirements, and we've got an accurate number in front of you. Let's see here. Another big part this year that we're trying to do as last year is we're trying to keep our property tax levy flat. Now, just to explain that, levy is the actual dollar amount that we receive in the budget. That is the $8,030,000 figure. The rate is that cent. That's how much you charge against the valuation of your house or your property. And so when I say levy, that is the actual dollars that we're looking to put in the budget. Rate is the calculation that you apply against your property to get that dollar amount. So we are trying to keep the property tax levy flat or static at $8,030,000 again for the third straight year. We did that this year, and that was the same from the year prior to this year. So trying to keep that static there as best we can, trying to be mindful of overall taxes and overall impact to the ratepayers. Now with this, though, a little bit different this year. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but as you saw in your memorandum, I explained SB 2, which is a 2019 legislation. Its whole purpose and intent is to limit how much growth we have on our M&O taxes, our property tax rate and levy. Again, this is now the third or fourth year that's been in effect, and so up until this point, let's see, I want to start this over a little bit here. On July 25th of every year, LCAD, the appraisal district, gives us the valuations that we work off of. The last several years, there have been no protests as of that point. I mean, they've all worked them out. Come July 25th, they worked out all the protests. Everyone's value is known. We have a good, solid, taxable number to work with. This year, it was different. There are still a large number of protests going on. Valuations have increased to the point that I think people have asked that their values be re-examined. And so LCAD still has a significant number of protests that they are working through the process. We also had, unlike previous years, LCAD had several court appeals occur mid-year. That is, as I understand it, that is once they give us a valuation, we set our budgets. Sometime after that, a person can challenge their value and through the court get it changed. So some of those took place this year. So with all that having been done, our valuation the calculation has changed to where even $8,030,000, even that's a static number, even that is beyond the 3.5% growth allocated by SB2. SB2 limits your growth by 3.5%. So if I raise $8 million one year, I'm only allowed to raise another 3.5 on top of that for the M&O. You would think that if we kept $8,030,000 same as last year, I should be able to do that again. Well, because of all the protests, because of all the challenges that have come into place, $8,030,000 is just 0.002 beyond the 3.5% threshold there. So that's 1/5 of a cent is what that is. Another aspect here that we'll get more into, I may be jumping ahead a little bit here, but I'll just hit it while we're talking about it. With that 3.5% growth, we are allowed to if we don't use that full 3.5 in 1 year, we can save that for up to the next 3 years. So say that this year we only do 3%, leaving 0.5%, 0.5% on the table. A year from now, if for whatever reason we decide, hey, we need some more money, I can do the full 3.5 plus this year's 0.5. We can capture that for the next 3 years. The first 2 years that SB2 was in play, we did the full 3.5%. And I know many of you have been through those budgets. You know the reasons why. It was justified. We needed to raise that funding. Last year, because of good sales tax receipts, we were able to come in under 3.5. We were under by 0.006 cents. And so that is still available to us to be utilized for this year, next year, and the year after that. But after that, it goes away complete. You can't go back and capture it again. And I'll do more into that a little later. But that's something to be mindful of. I am, as part of the budget here, we are requesting that we access 0.00255 of that available share just to get the $8,030,000, the static number there. It's critical, as we'll go through the budget message later on, it's critical to funding the things we have in the budget, that additional 0.00255 there. All right, balance of the operational funds. As you saw in your budgets there, we have 69 different funds in the budget. Now, the vast majority of those are special purpose funds, bonds, municipal court funds, just things that are not, we don't operate out of those funds. They're more rainy day or special purpose, meant for specific purposes down the road. We only have 4 operational funds, funds 1, 3, 10, and 45. 1 being the general fund, 3 being the airport fund, 10 is the water and sewer fund, and 45 being the sanitation fund. That is where we live out of every year. And whenever you talk about parks, recreation, library, water, sewer, we operate out of those 4 funds. So that's where my focus is going to be tonight. I don't dive deep into the special purpose funds. We don't try to balance those. The money is what we have in the bank. We don't raise a lot of new money other than here and there. So our focus is primarily 1, 3, 10, and 45. Now looking through this here, this is what I propose in the budget. We have a general fund of $29.6 million in revenue, expenditure of $31.1 million for a net difference of negative $1.435 million. We're going to look at to pull out of the reserve of 1.4 to balance that out. I'll talk about that for a second here. You saw in your memo, I spent a lot of time talking about the balancing of the budget using reserve funds. We were very blessed. In 21-22, we had over $3 million in excess revenue that come in. So the work that City Council, we have done, staff have done, Mr. Anderson through the process, we budgeted conservatively to the point that we actually raised $3 million addition beyond the budget for revenue. That's outstanding. At the same time, that's money to be spent. And so people, when they pay their taxes, they don't pay it so just to sit there in the reserve. And we'll delve more into that a little later on. So my proposal tonight is to utilize a large chunk of that $3 million to get some stuff done. And I'll dig more into that a little later on. So that's where that 1.435 comes from, is digging out of that additional $3 million. And I will say this, even though I covered it very clearly in the memo, We need to be very careful when it comes to using the reserve. You do not use the reserve to cover operational year-to-year expenses, whether it's payroll, insurance, fuel. Those are the things that happen every single year. You don't use reserve to cover that, because that's something that has to be happen every year. You use reserve for your one-time big things that are here today, but we don't have to buy it again next year. That's what you use reserve for. And all $1.435 million in there is tied to a one-time purchase. We don't budget anything. We don't balance anything that's continual off of the reserve. It's not illegal. We could do that. I highly recommend that you never do that. Airport fund, $1 million for revenue, expenditure 1.04, a difference of $30,000. Again, we have some reserve available to balance that out. Water and sewer fund as well as sanitation fund, they don't have as healthy reserve as general fund does. So Mr. Anderson and I, we do not propose using any reserve to balance the expenditure out. So money in is money out. We're not looking to tap in any reserve there. The general fund, with what I propose there, $1.4 million, that should not threaten the 4-month reserve that we try to maintain. Financial policy. Per the charter, we have to have a financial policy, and so going back to our strategic plan this last year, we adopted this as our financial policy. The mission of the City of Paris is to serve with professionalism and integrity, promote a safe and prosperous community for all citizens, and provide efficient and effective services for an excellent quality of life. That is not quite word for word from our strategic plan, but I adjusted it to fit the budget process here. So everything that I propose to you is keeping this in mind, trying to maintain excellence, efficiency, trying to improve the quality of life for our citizens. Everything that I propose to you is with this in mind. The budget message. So the next several slides here, we're going to go through each of these categories here. I'm going to touch on them. They were a big part of your memo. Significant, probably I'd say pages. They were pages 6 through, I want to say 15. So they were a significant part of your memo here. So we're going to cover each one topic by topic tonight. The first item that we have in the memo there is the City Council strategic plan. And so that's a key priority for us to address in the budget. Obviously, your goals are our goals. And so earlier this year, City Council passed Resolution 2023-002. It included a vision statement, a mission statement, and goals for the City of Paris. So you gave us 5 primary overall goals. The first one being enhance the city's relationship with key state and county representatives. Second is encourage economic development through business development and retention planning. Third is promote long-term growth in the community. Fourth is retain our citizens. And 5 is market the city. So as I developed the budget, I kept all 5 of those in mind. I tried to develop task items that further those missions. We're always open to additional ideas from the council, obviously, because these are your goals. We want to make sure that we're hitting these goals the way that you want them to be hit. And so as I looked at the budget, looked at capital requests, looked at possible projects, programs, I tied items back to these goals here. So in your packets, you'll have Exhibit G. This current fiscal year, 22-23, we identified a number of tasks that fall under these categories. I gave you a status update for each of those items. The majority of them are completed. And so I'm very pleased to say that. As you saw, we saw a lot of the word completed. Some are in the works, some are getting done. Very few have not gone anywhere. And so most of them are either in the works, being done, or completed. So I'm very pleased with staff. We've done an excellent job at getting those things moving along. Exhibit H is my proposed action items for 23-24. Taking your 5 goals, I've identified action steps for each of these 5 goals. So you saw that in your packets. The wastewater treatment plant, utility rates, and property tax levy. As we all know, we are busy building a brand new wastewater treatment plant. It is a necessity, is a requirement, whether it be TCEQ requirements, being the age of the facility, we have to build this facility. So phase 1 is under construction. We're looking at a phase 2 in 24-25 roughly. So in order to fund this, the project is over $100 million. It's a very expensive project. In order to fund this, we've had to issue a series of bonds. So per our city code A10.004, our planned rate increases from 4/1/21 to 4/1/26 cover the debt service payments for these bonds. Now, with this, we are fully aware of the impact this is having to our residents, and so we see that in the utility billing. We all hear about it. You all hear about it. We are very aware that this is having an impact to our residents. Unfortunately, we have to have the plant. We have to have a working operational facility to treat the water. So with this, City Council and staff, we have taken a lot of steps to try to alleviate this impact to our ratepayers. One of the things we've done is staff are always seeking to try to find more efficient and effective ways. We do bid out our chemicals. We bid out our high expensive projects. We try to find the best price for the things we do, trying to keep that dollar in mind so we don't have to raise the rate more for having more than necessary expensive projects. A thing we brought to the council here recently, as you recall, the GEO bond 2013 is up for renewal. So we can either keep it going as is, we can refinance it, or we can restructure it and then save $1 million a year in existing utility revenue. That's the route we're taking right now by your direction. So later this year, we will be bringing back to you the necessary documents to refund and restructure this 2013 bond that will free up $1 million in existing utility revenue that we can then apply against the foreseen rate increases. So that's a big alleviation there that will help our ratepayers going forward for many years to come. Given the amount of debt we've accrued now, talking to our financial advisor, we are now apparently open. We are now eligible for the opportunity for a commercial paper loan. This, in short, is like a line of credit. This will have some positive interest rate impacts for us. So we will be exploring this more as we delve into the next phase of bonding here. So we're very hopeful this will produce some savings when it comes to interest rates for the next series of bonds. We've been busy. Trying to identify bad debt we've had. Of course, you know, City of Toco, Route 40, we've been working hard with staff in order to basically plug those holes to make sure we're getting all the revenue we need to be getting so that we can pay our debt and make our bills. It's not fair that some pay the bills and some don't, and so we've worked hard to try to plug those holes as best we can, and those are all coming together. We did not raise water rates in 2023, so that was an excellent accomplishment there. Of course, as you know, community development with Andrew Mack and Maureen Hammond and PDC, they're working very hard to try to add industry, retail, commercial, housing, everything. When it comes to the debt, we know the cost of the plant is $100-some million. That's not going to change if we add more houses or not. It's that price. So the more accounts we can add to that, the more the cost gets spread out. So we very strong incentive to add more industry, more houses, more retail. Because again, the more chairs you add to that same table, the more it gets spread out across those chairs there. So we're very excited about the work they're doing. Very eager to help that further along to get more accounts added to our city. And with this, in order to help that effort, Public Works has been busy installing water lines over in the Gene Stallings Business Park, as you've seen out there. That is one, to try to add some redundancy for our looping system on the west side of town, but two, try to make us shovel ready so that whenever we get that next industrial prospect, the utility rates are already there. The utilities are already there, they're ready to go. And so we're just trying to get us one step ahead of our competition so that when industry are looking at Paris, wherever the town they're looking at, we are hopefully one step closer to them wanting to come here because the water lines are in the ground. So that's one thing we're using ARPA funds to do. So again, all these things that I've talked about here are our efforts to try to alleviate the impact to the ratepayer given our rising rates. So I do have another proposal for you tonight that's proposed in the budget. In the 23-24 budget, we are proposing that we take $1.5 million in existing utility bond expense from the utility rates and move that to property tax. That is that 15 cents that you saw in the earlier slide there. Very similar to the refund and restructuring proposal for the GEO 2013 bond here. This will free up an existing $1.5 million that we are currently raising right now. That will take that and put it to the property tax, thus taking that $1.5 that we're raising in utility and apply it to the oncoming debt that we're about to receive in the Phase 2 bonds. So with this, at my little table I show you there, we would go from 9 cents in property tax with INS this year to 15 cents to do this. That extra about 5 cents there is equivalent to $1.5 million. It can be 1.25, it can be 1.75. We can play around with that, but working with our financial advisor, 1.5 was a good move of the needle in order to try to take some burden off our ratepayers and take it off the ratepayers. So I want to emphasize that this does not alleviate the rates today. This project is a long-term project. This is one of those projects that you do once in a lifetime, hopefully. And so this project is going to be, we'll be paying this debt for decades to come. So these solutions, unfortunately, nothing makes the cost today go away. That's just not possible. There's no grants for this. There's just nothing that makes the cost go away. So this solution here is we're not going to see rates tomorrow go down because of this. However, shifting $1.5 million over, there is a possibility of being able to cancel out the 2026 rate increases that we have proposed here, maybe even the 2025. And so this whole thing is meant to be a long-term solution to helping with our future rising costs for this project here. Now, it can be a little controversial to apply this to the property tax. I will say that every property in Paris, whether you are developed, undeveloped, you use wastewater, you don't use wastewater, every property here is impacted by the presence of a fully functioning operational wastewater plant. If we don't have a plant in town, quality of life suffers, value of property suffers, business suffers. So every property in town, whether it's industry, retail, home, every property depends on a fully functioning wastewater plant. I also look at it when it comes to the residents. They are the hardest hit by these rate increases. Now, this is controversial to say, but this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as I see this, retail, commercial industry, they have the ability to adjust their revenues to account for rising costs. Residents don't have that same ability as easily. Most residents who are on fixed incomes, who are working for minimum wage, they can't just easily raise their revenue sources to account for the rising rates. So this proposal here is meant to focus primarily on alleviating the burden to our ratepayers, to our residents. We have almost doubled our disconnects since starting this process a couple of years ago. Those are predominantly, almost entirely residents. We don't typically shut off businesses. Now we will if it gets too far out, but residents are the ones who are feeling the brunt of these rates here. So that's why this proposal here is meant to try to alleviate the ongoing burden to our residential ratepayers going forward. So I think I did a better job explaining in my memo. Any questions on this, any concerns, any thoughts? I want to stop here to kind of get some feedback on this.
I did want to mention one thing. I want to applaud you guys, you, Mr. Vine, the staff, for really looking at that restructuring of that GO bond, because after analyzing that a bit further, I mean, that's a lot of savings that we're going to get. So I know that a lot of us have talked to our constituents and getting heat for, the amount of cost it's going to be, and I get it. But we're doing whatever we can to lower that, and so I do appreciate that narrative. I mean, you guys are really working hard to try to find whatever you can for the taxpayers to save money. Mm-hmm. So I'm all in favor of that, and I do appreciate you wanting to lower that even further. So
I'll throw this out there real quick too, but just to jump in, I should have covered this too. I do a better job in my memo about this, but working with our financial advisor, and you saw the numbers in my memo, looking at a house of $100,000 value, the long-term savings to a ratepayer. I mean, the typical ratepayer pays so much per month. This would lower their annual cost by almost $140 per year, roughly. That's give and take. It depends on usage. The added cost for the taxes on a $100,000 home is about $30 to $40 more. So you can see the savings there to an individual ratepayer at the end of the year. Savings in rates versus increase in taxes. There is an increase in the tax, but there is a massive savings to their rates. Now, also that changes for the valuation of your property there, but again, we're focusing on the residents here, trying to alleviate the burden with that. So I want to just put that out there as well. Any other thoughts or questions, concerns about this?
Kind of go back through the I&O again. Mm-hmm. You're going to take, we've got bonds from 13, right? That we're going to take. There's $1 million a year in output, I'm guessing, that we're paying on those bonds. We're going to restructure those bonds and put those in the. Explain that to me again.
Yes. right now, we're raising, I don't know the exact amount, but we're raising, say, $4 million in utility revenue that goes towards bonded and debt. I'm just going to say $4 million. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. $4 million. That's going to a 2013 bond. That's going to the phase one we did for the wastewater treatment plant. It's going to a few other bonds. Those bonds, that's money allotted to those. By restructuring the 2013 bond, we're taking $1 million of that existing 4, and we're saving that on the 13 bond because we're getting a better interest rate, and we're just shifting it over to this upcoming bond that we're going to be pursuing here for phase 2 of the project. So taking the same money that's already being raised and shifting to the next bond. So instead of asking for another $1 million, we're using the exact same $1 million by saving it over here and putting it over here. Is that helping?
Yep. So an interest rate, a relief of interest rates in the next 24 months, we could be in a different scenario with the INOs then, because we probably could refi some of this stuff. Is that?
Well, the reason we can do the 2013 bond is because it's come callable after 10 years. Our next bond is not callable for another 3 or 4 years. So in 3 or 4 years, we'll be doing the exact same. We'll be looking to do the exact same thing. If interest rates are better than what we took out 10 years prior, we will definitely restructure the bond and see that savings. If it's significant enough, we'll be able to just move that over to the wastewater plant and help with that project there. So timing worked out well for the 13 bond. That since we're doing it right now, restructuring. Interest rates are so good right now for refinancing a bond that we will see a roughly $1 million savings that we can then just keep receiving the same revenue, but apply it to new debt instead of raising new revenue. So,
I think you're going to have. I mean, growing pains are growing pains, and like we all talked a few times, this project should have been done 15 years ago.
yeah.
And I'm sure it'd have been a $40 million project instead of now we're at 100. I think it's part of the growth process, and the last thing I want to do is give any doubt to developers or any of the staff or Maureen and her staff or Chamber of Commerce. Everybody's pulling to try to get new industry here. That's really our number one goal, in my opinion. New industry brings new housing, brings new jobs, brings more money for folks and services we can provide, and I think that's our number one goal. I'm not saying we need to pad the industrial guy's pocketbook or nothing like that. I'm saying we need to make it an incentivized effort to get them here, because that's the longevity of the community, and I think this is a huge piece of that puzzle. So
Yeah.
sometimes growth hurts a little bit, but I don't think it's anything that's, obviously your M&O looks really good. I mean,
M&O is dropping. That's why I thought the timing worked well.
Yeah.
It's a net change of 3 cents.
And I always look at it on just a revenue side. This is how many dollars we're spending,
Yeah.
and that's everybody in this room's. Thank you very much. It's a tough thing to do. Y'all are in business like everybody else is, and I know costs are high, and people are tired and wore out, and it's hot, and we got other things to do, and it's tough. So I appreciate all the staff and everybody really having to put the grindstone on this stuff. And Grayson, obviously you've got it all figured out. So,
Well, I'm trying to. So, but again, these are we're just trying to find ways to alleviate the burden of the ratepayers. Trying to find things that, again, I wish I could tell you it's going to impact tomorrow. But again, this is a long-term project, 30, 40, 50 years for debt. So we're trying to find solutions that unfortunately solutions have to be that way. There's no immediate solution. So again, just trying to find ways to help our ratepayers out. Okay. All right, our next big piece of the budget we'll talk about tonight, the next topic is employee pay and benefits. Again, our greatest asset is our employees. And so they do outstanding work for our community. They are how our operations get done. We are a service-driven entity. We're not a money-generating service. We do jobs that don't make money. And so we depend very heavily on our staff. We depend very heavily on their experience, their capabilities, their skill. We depend very heavily on giving them the resources they need to get done. That's why turnover impacts us. That's why retention is such a big element of what we do, because the more turnover, the less experience, the more inefficient, the more ineffective we are. Going back to our financial policy, I'm seeking things that are efficient, effective, and good response time. So part of that is keeping our staff and giving what they need to do the right job. So, but again, we have great staff, and many of them are standing in front of you today, doing what we do in the parish. So with this, I just want to recap, before I get into our proposals for this upcoming year's pay and benefit changes, I want to recap things we've done the last 3 years. Again, City Council authorized us to change our TMRS from 6% 12% to 7.14%. That is an added benefit for our employees, adding some good retirement options for them. We did the comparable pay plan a few years ago that brought our cities up to comparable with other communities like ours. There were some significant changes made based on that. We were quite far behind on many of our positions. We had gone 20 years with 2 or 3 COLAs, and so it's kind of hard to keep good staff when you see your peers in other communities are making twice what you're making. So the City Council gave us the ability to move our comparable plan to comparable, and we've been maintaining that the last several years. So with that, we have added COLAs to our budget, 2% each of the last 3 years to try to maintain, keep up with our competitors. And with that, what a COLA is, as you all know, inflation impacts all of us. The price of food, the price of fuel, the price of just things at the store, home products, maintenance, those costs go up. And so the idea of a COLA there is to protect the buying power of our employees. Yes, it is a pay raise, but it's more intended so that this year they're making X number of dollars, and since it costs Y to live, we don't want Y to increase, but X not to where now it's actually more costly to work for us. That's a big reason why some employees leave employment, is they're looking for jobs that can keep up with inflation in the market. So we've been adding 2% COLAs the last several years to, one, keep up with comparables, but also, two, to help our employees' buying power out in the market whenever they're with their families. We also overhauled the police and fire seniority scales. Used to be a ton of overlap in those scales. It was actually a pay cut to sometimes promote. Sometimes if you were a veteran police officer and you went to becoming a sergeant, you actually would take a pay cut under civil service there. So we changed all that. That way it is a nice, smooth, tiered process going up. That way there are no pay cuts to promote. We want to encourage good officers and good firefighters to promote and do more responsibility in our departments. We also, a big change here was the City Council. We took the Parish Firefighters Relief Fund and Retirement Fund and moved it to TMRS. A couple highlights on this: that dropped the city's contribution from 14% down to 5.1%. That is a significant savings to our annual budget that way. It also dropped the employee contribution for our fighters from 16% down to 7%. Again, a significant impact to their personal checks. It did increase our city debt payment, but ultimately this terminates a ever-growing unfunded liability. We've all heard of the Detroit, Michigans. We've heard of Chicago, Illinois, with those unfunded pensions looming over them. We were the least funded pension in Texas at that point. We were only 28% funded at the time. That's an embarrassment for us, for the community, for our staff. And what that ultimately means is that there will come a day that it would grow so much that we couldn't keep up with it. That our taxpayers had to make a tough decision, either to drop it, cut retirement, or take out massive bonds just to recoup what needed to fund it. Well, we stopped that. We froze it, we fully funded it, and now we have a good, viable retirement for our firefighters there. So at least for our future, for our citizens here, they're not looking at a looming, growing unfunded liability. They're looking at it decreasing to the point of eventually going away. That was a major success for us in Paris. To what I know, it was the first one in Texas to having been done. So we're very proud of that. We also, last year, we increased the health contribution from the city from $565 per month to $595. Unfortunately, when it comes to health insurance, those rate increases don't become known until the fourth quarter of the year. So right now, we're working with estimates, ideas, but we don't know what's actually going to be until October, November, December. This last year, rates unfortunately went much higher than we expected, and so City Council was willing to give the employees a $30 per month increase to try to help counteract that impact that was unplanned. So with all this, I just want to say on behalf of the staff, thank you, City Council, for the work you have done the last several years to help give our employees a more competitive, more favorable pay options, benefit options. So thank you all for the work you have done with this. So for this year, I have several proposals for our budget here. For 23-24, I am again once again requesting a 2% cost of living adjustment for all full-time positions other than myself, the city manager. Again, this is to help with the buying power for our employees. Again, costs are going up, and we see that today still. So trying to give our employees that extra 2% COLA there to help keep up their buying power for personal goods at home with their families. I also wanted to transition from a biennial step increase to an annual step increase. Right now, we have 8 steps. You achieve a step every 2 years. So it takes you have to wait 2 years for your next actual pay increase. Again, costs are going up the whole time there. And so I like to take it from biennial to annual. To accomplish that financially, I'm going to keep step 1 to step 1. I'm going to make step 8 to step 15. Then I'm going to do half steps in between all that. So with that, employees, they won't reach step 8 in 8 years. They're still reaching in 15 like it is currently, but that's what makes it possible financially for us to accomplish. But that way, employees, they get an increase every year instead of every other year. That has a cumulative impact, positive impact to our employees. So that's another added benefit for our employees taking it to annual. With that, in order to make this happen, in order to try to avoid some unfair compression, some employees receive their biennial this year. Other employees are waiting till next year. For those employees who are waiting till next year, we are going to move them to the next step on October 1st, and then on their anniversary next year, whether it's October, November, December, they will move to the next step. That way we can avoid some unfair compression in the system there. For those employees who received one this year, they will get one next year, but that way they won't gain ground on those who have been waiting their turn for their increase. So we are going to do that logistically or through the budget process, and I've got that drafted into the budget. We also proposed here a $30 per month increase in the city's monthly contribution to the health insurance. We know that rates will be going up. I've got some rough ideas for rate increases. Again, I don't want to pronounce those because they're still far out, but we're trying to stay ahead of those increases by giving some more contribution from the city to their employees to help counteract those rising costs. So another $30 per month for that. Then, as you all know, we are still struggling to hire and retain police officers. I think I am right down about 18 officers right now as we stand. Over the last 24 months, we have hired 14 and lost 26. And that's with an existing vacancy list prior to that. So we're not heading in the right direction. So we've done a lot of work here to try to help counteract that. We've done a pay study. We've done certification pay, sign-on bonuses, lateral transfer options for employees. We're still struggling to compete locally with our local competition here. So I proposed in here just another way of trying to keep up with our competition here. I'm going to give what I'm proposed to do is for brand new first year patrolmen, we're looking at increasing by 8% instead of 2% for COLAs, and then I'm going to do a reducing sliding scale to the far end as 2% there. So every sworn officer will receive 2% or more of it for a COLA this year, but obviously the newer officers will receive a higher one. The idea behind that is I'm trying to attract new officers and then retain them. We're still struggling to keep those younger officers there. So this is meant to try to help retain some of our younger officers there while attracting some. This will take it from $52,000 to $56,000 starting pay for our patrolmen. I would have done more for our officers, but unfortunately I ran out of budget room. To do this, I want to be clear about this. I want to explain this. In order to accomplish this with all the other things we have in the budget, from static property tax to capital improvements to everything, I've had to unbudget most all of our vacant positions. Now, we're not going to stop hiring. We're going to keep hiring. But there's not much point in keeping a vacant position budgeted if we can't fill it, when I can use that money to try to incentivize new officers to come on or to retain officers. And so we took that money in the budget and we applied it towards this. Again, I want to emphasize we're not going to stop hiring. We just have to accept that if we can hire more officers, we may have to amend our budget by the end of the year, but then mission accomplished. We now have more officers. So trying to find a way to financially make this happen. And so that was my tool to get this done. So again, I'm not trying to defund the police department. I'm not trying to take money away from them. In fact, they've actually had more money added to their budget than last year. But again, in order to give them the 8% increase there, I had to unbudget some positions in order to make that pay happen. So,
I like that. I think that's a great move.
yeah.
Grayson, I'm curious. I know civil service comes in on a lot of this stuff. I'm still trying to learn the dividing line between what the city can do and what civil service kicks in. Do we conduct exit interviews or do we conduct any kind of surveys with our current staff at the police department, our officers and such, just to understand a little bit more of, hey, how are you feeling? Let's do a pulse check and see, do you feel good? What are you feeling that you could use more of? Whether that be, hey, is it vacation time that we're looking at? Is this retirement? Is this, that, or the other, yada, yada, yada. I'm just trying to figure out what is the best way to do a pulse check on what we have, because as we all know, having a newer officer come through, which we all need, there is a fine line between experience versus fresh from the academy. So just curious to see what you guys have to offer there.
Yeah, our recent losses have been to retirements. We feel every loss we have now hurts because it's leaving a gap that we have to fill. But this is a nationwide problem. This is every department in the nation. The military is hurting. They're trying to retain more. We like to recruit from the military. So there's a squeeze across the board, which is why we put these measures in place to recruit and retain. And like Mr. Path was saying, our competition is local. It's not, if our officers want to make more money, they can easily increase their pay significantly just by going to one of the Metroplex departments. But they don't want to. They want to stay here. So our competition is with the school district police. There's a lot of money dumped into now after the shooting down south. There's a lot of money being dumped in the school district police. So they're raising their salaries to match ours. And so before Mr. Path has gotten here, the pay in police has stayed stagnant for so long, all these other departments have caught up to us. And our officers can go and work for the school district for almost the same money, work 180 days a year, and be home with their kids, versus the 12-hour shifts that we're working. The workload for our officers is considerably, significantly higher than the county or the school districts or Reno or any of these other departments. And so, we need to create a gap to retain our guys, and our competition's local. It's not regional. That's the best. But yes, we do give exit interviews, and a lot of times it's workload. I think most of the losses we've had lately have been workload and retirement. So,
well, I know I know a lot of people are fatigued, as Mr. Pilgrim had said, and I mean, look, we really appreciate all the officers and everything that you guys put up with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if we didn't have the police, I don't know where we'd be in this community. So we appreciate you guys, and if anyone out there is listening and has interested in becoming a police officer, please sign up.
And
we need the help.
We have a really good crew of police officers right now. They're young, but they're good.
And we recognize the solution is not all money. We recognize that. And so it's work environment, but as Chief Salter said, it's sometimes they can go make equal or even a slight pay cut, but have an easier job. So I don't want to minimize anything that any law enforcement does, but we have seen what our officers have to deal with. And some officers have talked about that. They have said the type of work they do here versus somewhere else is different. And it's sometimes worth a pay cut. And so
risk factor, quality of life, all those things.
Again, I want to be clear. I do not want to minimize any of our other local law enforcement, whether it's schools or county, but there is a difference on what they do. And so they're all doing great work, but unfortunately we're suffering because we're losing the numbers. So again, this is just another strategy there to try to attract and retain our officers, particularly on the younger end of the scale. So, our patrolmen. Again, if I could have given everyone an 8% increase, if I could have given everyone a 10%, I would have done. I just ran out of money. So that's just unfortunately what it was. I do also want to emphasize that when I did defund those positions, I hate to use the word defund, but unbudget those positions, not a single penny of that went to any other department other than the police department. So I didn't use that to help pay for anyone else's pay increases or changes. All that money was recouped back in the police department, and I added more on top of that. So just trying to be more efficient with the budgets that I've got for our departments. Any questions on the proposed employee pay changes for this upcoming year? Next item in your memo was street mill and overlay project, kind of an exciting opportunity for us. We have 2 existing GEO bonds, 17 and 18. We still have money left over in those bonds, $2.2 million in street money available to us. So with that, going back to that $3 million that I told you about that we had surplus there, I like to take $1 million of that, add it to this, make 3.2 in total, and do some mill and overlays throughout town, focusing on arterial roads. I know everyone is going to ask, my street, my street, my street, my street. Unfortunately, this won't touch that. So working with staff, working with Todd Mitke, Michael Smith, and Mike Wade, and Rob Vine, we've been trying to prioritize some recommendations to bring back to you, but focusing on our arterial roads in town. But we have a lot of needs in town. We have a lot of roads that could use a good mill and overlay. So we're looking at doing a big impact next year on mill and overlay projects. So $3.2 million of that. Next big item here is our fire apparatus replacement. As you know, we have successful rotating programs for police cars and ambulances. We do not yet have a rotation program for our fire trucks, our fire apparatus. The big reason being they're very expensive, $500 to $2.5 million worth. And so they're very expensive pieces of equipment. So that's, unfortunately, the city has not started a successful rotation program for that. I don't have an answer for you for that tonight, unfortunately. But I do have a way to at least kickstart that. Again, back to that $3 million in surplus money we had from 2 years ago. I would like to take 1.5 of that and put it into a CD and start the process of getting our 1996 ladder truck replaced. That is the next truck on our list to be replaced. It is our oldest truck. Unfortunately, it's also our most expensive truck. It is a $2.2 million truck. It has a 2.5 year lead time for delivery. The nice thing is they don't expect payment up front. We will have in about 2 years one of our existing fire apparatus loans coming due. And so we're going to pay that loan off in about 1 or 2 years. Between 1.5 and that loan, we are right there at about 2.2. And so I'm utilizing this money with that loan. We're going to reissue a new loan at that time, about $700,000 worth is what that loan was. It's going to change based on interest rates, but the idea here is take that expiring loan, renew a new 10-year loan, add 1.5, and get ourselves our new ladder truck in order to kickstart our replacement program. We still need to figure out a way to continue with replacement. This is not a solution to repeat over and over again, because you can't depend on surplus money always being there. But it's at least a way to buy ourselves some more time to figure that out. Because every day the trucks get older. And unfortunately, I know the Chief of Monaco has informed me that this truck, it can no longer count towards our ISO rating. It is now aged out of that program there. So it's very critical that we get the ladder truck replaced. And I'd say 1996, we've got a pretty good life. We've done a pretty good job of maintaining that truck from garage in the fire department. They've done a good job getting every bit of dollar they could out of that truck.
What happens to those older trucks? Like, that's 96, that's a long time, but
Yeah.
Just say if it was 15 years old, what happens to those trucks when we
We
replace
auction them off, and unfortunately, the resale value is next to nothing. So I know Chief Monaco and I talked about that. These trucks are not worth anything, unfortunately. People sometimes take it, they tear the box off, and they use the engine for other things. And so, but we will have to auction it off. You go
Can
from
we
this.
go to volunteer? Or
Some can, but there are certain certification issues that they have to run into. This truck is aged out of being certified in some respects, and so some departments will weigh that inside of his worth the risk. But typically, my experience is a lot of volunteer departments, the truck is aged up beyond liability purposes. If I'm saying that probably right there, Thomas. So. But that is an option, though. Someone can definitely buy it from us for that purpose. Other items in the memo that we try to adjust for in the budget, that we do have continuing rising costs. Just like the homeowner, we too cost the inflation. The market is impacting us. The price of buying widgets and gadgets, are all going up. When it comes to fuel, insurance, everything, the price is going up. And this, unfortunately, this is doing the exact same amount of work. The same amount of potholes, the same amount of water lines. Unfortunately, the cost to do that same amount of work is going up. And so we tried to, as you'll see in the budget here, we're trying to adjust our cost up in order to at least maintain existing services. Where we can, we try to expand and do more, but it's hard enough just maintaining with rising costs. So we tried to adjust for that in the budget in all departments in order to at least provide the same amount of services without decreasing services. Also in your budget is a lengthy list on pages 11 through 12 and page 20 of a number of capital projects. Using ARPA funds, using CARES funds, and primarily using the general surplus funds, general fund surplus funds, we are fortunate to be able to add a number of equipment purchases, supplies, studies, and so forth. The housing study, tearing the Belford down, the Grand Theater. I'll talk about some of these a little later on. Some equipment, some trucks, some vehicles, some excavators, things that we need to do our job. We still have some very old equipment. I know one of our parks trucks is a 1998, I think, still. They've been doing a job keeping that thing running, but it's on its last legs. And so we're trying to replace aged-out equipment in order to keep providing services. So you see a list in your memo of all those items, and I won't go through each one tonight. New positions, the next item to talk about tonight. As a city manager, I am constantly looking for better ways of providing our services efficiently, effectively, and responsibly. Again, getting back to our financial policy. I know it can be sometimes controversial to add positions. That, for whatever reason it is, sometimes people view that in government as a bad thing. Well, our task is to provide services, and that involves people. And so I'm always looking for ways to make things better, more efficient, more effective. And so I like to point to my record. Looking at the last several years, we've added the assistant manager, director of planning and community development, IT manager, airport manager, dispatch supervisor, police community outreach officer, assistant building official, assistant fire marshal, and a number of others. I know all of us have seen the gains, the added benefit we've had by these positions here. They have come in and been game changers. And so I'm always very purposeful when I make a recommendation for a new position. I don't just frivolously ask for something or try to increase our staffing here. We try to be very purposeful, very intentful with what we're trying to pursue in a new position here. I also try to find good people. And so I think we've been very successful in filling these jobs with good people who have made a true difference. I know this comes with an added cost, but I believe and I will defend that the cost is far outweighed by the gains we have had in all these positions here. Same with the ones I want to propose tonight. First one, an assistant city manager. I would like to promote Doug Harris, our utilities director, to the position of assistant city manager. You all know Mr. Harris. I want to get this right here, so I want to say this right. Mr. Harris has served the city of Paris for 30-plus years, many of which have been in his current position. After 3 years of direct observation, it is my professional opinion that Mr. Harris has the skills and abilities that can be put to even greater use upon promotion to a position of high responsibility and accountability within Paris. His faithful and loyal service to the city of Paris, carefully managing the city's treatment infrastructure for water and sewer, has proven his ability as a manager and a leader. And I'd like to tap into that to further benefit Paris residents on a higher scale. To accomplish this, I have reorganized the city's organizational chart. I will reclassify Rob Vine to deputy manager in order to create a distinction in the progression of chain of command and shift responsibilities between the three positions. With this, what I propose is I will continue to be responsible for all departments, of course. That's my role as city manager. You look to me as your employee to provide you all services. I will focus now primarily on emergency services and HR. I will shift to Rob Vine, community services. I'm going to add to him city clerk, finance director, and also PIO, which I'll talk about later tonight. I will then shift all infrastructure services to Mr. Harris. That is the current water treatment, wastewater treatment, lift station, all of public works, and city engineer, creating 3 spheres of focus. We have emergency services, public infrastructure, and community services. So with this, I see greater efficiency, greater effectiveness, greater response time for citizens, for council, for staff. I see it being more available from the city management department position for our staff. More access to our staff to get things done, whether it comes to contract negotiation, HR management, strategizing, and so forth. I see a lot of efficiency in this, and I apologize. I do a better job of explaining this in my memo here, but I believe that this is a worthy position to add to our city. To accomplish this, I will unbudget the utilities director position. So in order to financially make this position happen, I will take the director of utilities position, unbudget that, and apply that towards the ACM position. So the difference being about $20,000 difference between the two positions. So very, very achievable to reach that. Any questions about that? Again, I believe that my job is to look for efficiency, effectiveness, and response time. And I do believe that Mr. Harris, with his skills, his abilities, I'd like to promote that to a higher level of responsibility to make things even better for our community. Public Information Officer. We have grown to a point that we need to do a better job of communicating with our citizens, whether it's social media, website, just everything in between, open records requests. We need to do more and do it better of talking to our citizens about what's going on, what's happening, emergency responses, upcoming events, status on projects. We just need to do a better job of communicating with our peoples here in our community here. So I see in this position here open records requests. I see a vibrant interactive social media presence. I see website management, press releases, media interaction, public emergency management communication. Whenever I'm in the thralls of a situation on ice storm or tornadoes, it's nice having a person there who can handle the communication side of things. That's a part you have to time out, rethink, and focus on that. I need to be focused, and staff need to be focused on addressing the issue there. So having a PI will help with that drastically. Public education of services. It'd be nice if citizens knew more about their government. What do we do? What do we offer? How does permitting work? How does code enforcement work? If you have a leak, who do you talk to? I see social media. I see videos. I see interviews of all of you. I see so many things that we can do to get our recognition, get our names, get our information out to the public. We also have the PEG funding, the Public Educational and Governmental Funding. For those who don't know much about that, as you look at your cable bill, there is a small, I think maybe like $1 per month that goes to the city for public educational channels. We've not utilized that. It is over $770,000 of accrued funds there. The PIO will be best suited to start spending that money down via channels, via technology. I see this person being very critical to start utilizing that money. We've never utilized it. So we need to shut that money down, figure out how to stop the money from coming in, or start spending it. People are paying it. They need to see it spent. A PIO will be responsible for working on that. And of course, brand management. We are working with Dead Cat Media, doing an excellent job. That is a 1-year contract. I do see the PIO being responsible for managing our brand going forward. So I see a lot of opportunities here to alleviate work off of current staff and expand our presence on the web, social media, and just in the community. Assistant Finance Director. A couple of things here. Mr. Anderson is doing an awesome job for us, but as many of you know, there's more work than one individual can do. There is a need for some succession planning with the position, and we need to add some capacity to the finance department. Between whether it's billing, warehouse, payroll, grant administration, there is more work. This is the backbone of all our operations, finance. The work has exceeded the ability for one manager to take on. He's got excellent staff, but there is a need to have another, hopefully CPA, added to the mix in order to help manage the load here for this department. We did look at third party for a little bit, but when it comes to the costs, the hourly rates, the availability, succession planning, just daily management so that Mr. Anderson can actually take a vacation. He doesn't take vacations. There's a need to have another presence in the office to help with that. So the next 3 positions are EMS paramedics. This would take we have 3 shifts. A, B, and C. We have three trucks that are 24/7 full-time staff, one truck that is 15 hours a day with a full-time, part-time, and then at night, the DC on duty then fills in the extra position there. We're about to hit 10,000 calls a year. The last time we added a truck was at 6,000 calls. So we probably should have done this at 8,000 calls. Our staff are running ragged every day. We've reached the point that we are now having to have every day a part-time person for 15 hours a day. So what I proposed here is to take that 15-hour part-time person, make it into a 24-hour full-time person. That will help with reliability. That'll help with giving our part-time back to leave replacement. Right now, every day we have a person on leave because we have 8 people on duty every day plus the DC. There's usually someone out sick or on vacation or something like that. We're having to constantly pull from our PRNs for both 15 hours a day and someone to fill in the void when people are on leave there. So this position will help free up our PRNs for that. It'll also give us 4 full-time trucks plus a standby truck in the evening hour, actually all day long. So that will help us with our 10,000 calls a year. So any questions about that? Or I apologize. I know I'm not doing as good a job explaining this as I did in my memo, but there's just so much to try to cover in one night.
Well,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Well, the only comment I have on that, I have no problem with adding these jobs. I've talked to you about it. Some of them, I feel like we really need, but we're shorthanded across the board, pretty much. So we say we can't find the funding to raise those pay rates up so we can try to fill those jobs, but then we come up with the funding to add all these new jobs. So, citizens will wonder, okay, how can we add, and I hear this all the time, how can we add these new jobs and we can't come up with enough money to raise the pay, to bring people in on the existing jobs.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that's kind of sticking out to me on it. But some of these jobs, hey, we need it. We need the departments to work fluid, because that's another complaint. Hey, it's slow process, So, and we also talked about that, how we need to fill some of those jobs to take the weight off of, as we grow, as people are building, as projects come. So we, especially in in Mr. Mack's department, we need people there to increase the speed of projects and 5 in 5 and all these things. But that's going to be, we'll probably be hit, with that question a lot. Yeah. How can we come up with these new jobs when we can't even fill the jobs that we have?
That's why I've been very purposeful with what I've requested. Like, again, the assistant city manager, $20,000 difference there. The PIO and AFD, those are truly new positions. The EMS paramedics, that's taking 15 hours of daily part-time pay and shifting it over to full-time pay in order to meet the needs. But if you were to add up all the new position pay, it's a drop in the bucket in order to give all employees more money. And so, if you add up the AFD, the ACM, the paramedics, the other positions I added on here, that total increase in the budget, you might get I have 300 employees, different pay ranges. You might get a few more cents added to everyone's pay by repurposing that money over there. So knowing that, I've got 2% COLAs in there. We've gone from biennial to annual, adding increase. I'm trying to find a way to increase in pay while also hitting on efficiency, effectiveness for our departments there as well. So does that make sense?
Yeah, and with it, to that point, when we increase numbers, then the citizens are thinking, I pay for this, so I'm expecting that service to increase.
Absolutely.
Or to move
And again,
faster.
that's why I point back to our record of the positions we've added here, airport manager, IT manager, the ACM we have right there. I know we have seen great gains in our operations through the position. We took a city engineer, split it apart to have a true engineer and a true director of planning community, but that was huge. We're now getting twice, if not more, the work done between the two positions there, between just having 1 to 2 there. So we've been very careful about what we propose and what we implement there to try to truly provide the citizens more service, more faster response time. So again, I feel that those we've added there, we have seen the gains for our service.
Go ahead.
Meter reader and community development department secretary. Again, meter reader, going back to the wastewater rates, we have doubled our disconnects for service here. it's very important that we timely address those. We don't want bills to rack up and up and up to where a person gets so far in the hole that they can't pay it off. That's why it is important to shut them off if they get too far in the hole. But likewise, when they come into pay, we want to timely restore service. Because we have doubled our number of disconnects, it has gone beyond what our current staff can handle. They're running ragged out there. So in fact, this year we have actually added a temporary employee just to help fill the void for our department in preparation for this. So our recommendation is to add a fourth meter reader to help with that growing demand in our department. We also have the Community Development Department Secretary.
Excuse me, Grace, just a
Yes,
second
yeah.
on the meter reader. Now, we don't have physical meter readers on every meter, right? Am I correct?
We have radio read in some cases. Some of our meters are still wand, and some are still read. But most of them are electronic. But still, it comes to from service to connect to disconnect. There's a need for that additional
Okay.
person. But yeah, we're not physically going out there with a pad and writing down I probably need 12 employees to do that. So, Community Development Department Secretary. This would be a frontline employee to help with the staff there in the front desk, handling the front desk, handling the income citizens, the phone calls, directing queries to individuals. When it comes to planning, zoning, permitting, code enforcement, fire marshal, historic Main Street, this would be the person you meet when you first walk in the office there. Right now, all of our staff are technical in nature, from permanent tech to what Trinity Frazier does. They're having to take a lot of time away from the technical duties in order to man the front desk. This person's sole job will be managing the front desk. This will free up Paige Unger, Trinity Frazier, free up Skylar Unger at the front desk, and you let them get back focused on the technical side of their jobs. And again, I'd just like to encourage everyone to refer back to my memo for more detail on these things. All right, another piece of our budget, that's all the positions that we talked about. There's 8 positions there that we're proposing to add to the budget. Another piece that we have in our budget is trying to maintain operational services. Our primary goal of the budget is to comply with our financial policy, to provide the services expected of our citizens of Paris. I think our staff are continuing to do a good job being frugal, being consistent and conscientious of the taxpayer dollar. They're always trying to find the best deal. See that when you look at the line items, there's not much change when it comes to most line items. It's pretty static. They're doing a good job of trying to do more with less or maintain with the same amount of money. Working with staff, we do believe that what we see in the budget today will accomplish the job for next year. All right, SB2, I'm going to cover all this tonight. It's pretty thick. I covered it in your memo for SB2. I covered it earlier tonight. All right, property valuations. Looking at property valuations, this is the part of the charter. In the memo, I have to provide to you an analysis of property valuation changes. You can see there the changes over time, 17-18, 3% increase, 3% increase, 4, 5, 19% increase in 21-22, 9 in 22-23, and so far 7% in 23-24. Talking about revenue. This is Exhibit A of your packet. There is as you look at Exhibit A, it includes every line item you can go through from fines to fees to permits to everything. I'm going to focus on the big ones here tonight. Our significant general fund revenues are come from property tax M&O, which is $8,030,000, sales tax $10.3 million, franchise fees, street use fees 3.6, which that includes Encore, Atmos, Gas, Sudden Link, private sanitation, water, sewer. City sanitation fee, $70,000. I want to stop there for a moment. We have not raised our rates in 12 years. Now we're undergoing an RFP for third-party service. It probably could not be any better timed. Given we have not raised our rates in 12 or more years, we have been cannibalizing the part going into the general fund. Every year, we do apply some sanitation revenue to the general fund for street maintenance. These are heavy trucks. They use the streets every day. So it makes sense that fund help cover part of the cost for street maintenance. When I arrived, it was about $400,000 in the general fund. In order to avoid rate increases, we've been cannibalizing that every year. This current year is $200,000. As you can see, I propose $70,000. If we don't end up outsourcing our service this upcoming year, I will have to ask for a rate increase in solid waste a year from now. Costs have gone up to the point to where we don't have any more revenue to balance out those costs. And so I just want to stop and say that for sanitation fees. So again, probably good timing when it comes to outsourcing sanitation. Our EMS revenue, along with the county revenue for EMS, is $3.8 million. EmergerCom is doing an outstanding job of bringing more revenue in for the city. Our rate increases have helped with that quite a bit too. So our revenue has been going up and up and up the last couple of years. That's been great to see that happening. Then our water and sewer admin fee is 1.2. Again, part of the utility bill goes to help subsidize the general fund. That's pretty common. You see in a lot of cities. So we have 1.2. That's not changed in several years. Other significant revenues in the budget, other operating funds, airport fuel and rent is $1 million. Sewer fees, $11 million. That's gone up quite a bit for our bond and indebtedness. Water fees, $8 million. Again, we did not raise our rates this upcoming year, so that's not changing based off rates. That's changing based off usage. And sanitation fees, 1.3. That's the other part of that $70,000 figure.
Hey, on the airport fuel and rent, most of that is fuel, right? Am I right about that, the bulk of it?
Vast majority is fuel, yes,
Yeah.
fuel sales. And those have been increasing. I know our airport manager, which a new position, doing outstanding work, working out there, working with tenants, trying to draw in people to buy fuel from us. We've been very competitive in our pricing. We've had a lot of people fly to our airport because we have better pricing than other places. That's more revenue we wouldn't have. So Paul's doing an outstanding job at the airport bringing in revenue for our department. That department is almost one-to-one self-sufficient. So it's doing an outstanding job maintaining nearly a one-to-one self-sufficiency. Expenditure. This is Exhibit B of your packet. You see a breakdown there. This is all in your packet, your memo. This is a summary of all the departments. I'm going to go through each one tonight, so you don't have to sit there and read each one of these. But this is a summary of all the operational departments. Capital outlay. Through the use of Water and Sewer Fund, Airport Fund, ARPA, CARES, and Surplus General Fund, we do have a number of proposed capital purchases. That's pages, I think, 11 and 12 of your packet. Whether it is equipment, whether it is housing study, whether it is the Grand Theater, whether it is new personnel, so forth. We have a number of things added to the budget here for capital outlay things. So most of those are funded through one-time revenue sources like the general fund. Obviously, personnel is through reoccurring revenue, but other items like equipment is all funded through one-time revenue. You see some significant expenses we have is the Belford demolition. Of course, I talked about the ladder apparatus replacement, street mill and overlay, various equipment when it comes to trucks, track hose, mowers, things like that. We have some radios for our emergency services. We have different new software. We're going through Microsoft 365. Our current Microsoft system is no longer serviced at the end of this year, so it's time to replace that. The personnel I talked about, housing study, then the Grand Theater. I do want to stop there for a minute there, only because recently Mayor Hughes and Mayor Pro Tem Pankaj and I met with the Grand Theater board. If you go back to this current year, we set aside about $15,000 to go toward a phase one analysis. We own the building. The Grand Theater is owned by the city. We do lease it out to this nonprofit. The purpose of that was to encourage them to revitalize the building. When then, unfortunately, COVID hit, and so they're not been able to get their feet underneath them just yet. So last year, under the guidance of Mayor Portugal, we set aside some funds in order to send in a consultant in and decide how much is it going to cost to clean the building out. For those who've been in the building, it's in a terrible mess. There is mold, there is asbestos, there is decay. I know Mayor Hughes and Mayor Pro Tem Pankaj had a chance to go there this last Friday and see for themselves the situation the Grand Theater is in. It's very hard to get donors to donate when you walk in and see a toxic zone. And so the goal here is to utilize some ARPA funds in order to clean the building out, give them a clean slate, do some selective demo, remove all the asbestos, get all the decay and all the mold out of there. That way the theater group, the nonprofit, can then work on trying to bring in donations, grants, in order to revitalize that building. And so in the budget you have before you tonight is $100,000 set aside to help clean the building out. This is using ARPA funds. This is not general funds, this is ARPA funds. And that was the number given to us by our consultant through phase 1 in order to clean out and abate the building. Now with this, they're very eager to get started. They like to start right away. So they've asked me to propose to the council that we start that ASAP. And so what I intend to do is bring back to you on August 24th the necessary documents to go to bid in order to start that process, unless the city council decides otherwise. I do think this is a worthy project. This is our building. We are asking every other downtown building to revitalize their buildings. It just makes sense that we likewise follow suit and try to revitalize one of our existing buildings. I see a question.
What are ARPA funds, or refresh my
ARPA,
memory?
yes, these are the federal funds we received following COVID.
Okay,
We received those funds a couple of years ago. We've been utilizing them for key purchases and projects.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So with that, unless otherwise directed, I will bring back to you on the 24th the necessary bid documents for you to consider to start the process of trying to receive a contractor to do that work.
Grace, and I'll state this, I definitely agree. I mean, as you stated, we did take that tour. That building is in complete chaos, to put it lightly. And I think it's our responsibility as a city to take care of our own building when we absolutely talk to other citizens to say, hey, you got to take care of yours. So I appreciate that basically, I appreciate that exercise that we went through to do that, but I definitely agree that we need to do that. So I appreciate the haste, and I'm in support of that.
Yeah, they have a new board in standing. They have, according to them, they have some good donors kind of lined up, waiting for this to be done. And so this is one way to help kickstart that process in order to get the donors to that final step of actually donating funds. And so they're again, given the condition the building is in, they're not eager to see it move forward until they see the building cleaned up.
So, and I'm sure y'all know more about this than me, but does that nonprofit feel like there's opportunity there?
Yes.
They really think it is, okay.
Yes, they feel very strongly about that.
Because it's been down for a long time.
Yes, yeah. Again, there was a lot of excitement when they first formed about 3 or 4 years ago, but then COVID hit and that derailed everything they had in progress. And so the whole intent behind this last year was in order to kickstart that process and get them some legs underneath them. So the total estimated cost to revitalize the building is over $4 million. So that's going to be their piece of it. So $100,000 seems like a worthwhile
Right.
kickstart in order to help get that building back on its feet again. The next several slides we're going to go through tonight is our individual department summaries. And so this is going to be very high level. I'm not going to dig into the line by line so much unless any council members have a question on those line by lines. I'm going to talk about comparing 22-23 to 23-24 overalls, and I'm only pulling out the key factors behind why we're seeing ups or downs in the overall budgets. Primary reasons behind that affect all the budgets, the changes you see there. Thank you. I'm going to probably need both of those. The primary reasons you see behind the changes tonight are, of course, trying to implement our budget message, the strategic plan, the task behind the strategic plan, the capital outlays, the improvements. You'll see a lot of the capital items are the reasons why we have changes in the budget. We have some new positions. We have the new pay changes for employees, the COLAs, the annual increases. Of course, rising cost inflation as a part of this. So all those things are the primary reasons you'll see changes in these departments here. There's not a lot of changes in services. This is primarily a maintaining budget other than the personnel I've added to the budget. What we do is I go line by line through the budget. I go every line, every department, and I look at historical trends. I look at, okay, this year we spent $3,000, 2001, 2002. Okay, a budget of $10,000 doesn't make sense. So I try to realign every line item that makes sense historically. And then I have the staff explain to me or defend why there needs to be a change, positive or negative there. So we go through the exercise for every single line item there. So I try to give you a historically accurate budget that meets, that matches our services year after year. First is City Council, your department. 22-23, 138,000 budget. This next year, 190,000, increase of 51,000. Primary reason is a housing study. So we also have in here, kind of tied to this budget, just for lack of other budgets to tie to, we have the Belford Building and the Belford Building demolition and the Grand Theater, which that's being covered by ARPA funds. City Manager Department, Department 12, a difference of $171,000. The reasons for this is the ACM position. Again, we're splitting at 1/3 general, 1/3 water treatment, 1/3 wastewater treatment. That's where Mr. Harris's focus is going to be at. So it makes sense that the water fund helps subsidize that expense for services. We also add the PIO, so those expenses are the primary reasons for that change in that department. Otherwise, it's typical office expenses, paper, pens, pencils, those kind of things, travel utilities, and so forth. City Attorney, Department 13, a change of $40,000. Primary reasons just our employee pay and benefits. That's the 2% COLAs, the adjusted annual from biennial to annual increases there. We also are increasing our outside legal counsel fees. Our budget. We have a number of legal situations we're in right now. The council's aware of those, and so we are having to tap into our third-party legal counsel on a regular basis. Those do have high costs, and so we are looking to budget more in order to account for those costs. And also, we've been putting Tracy Pounders, our delinquent tax attorney, to more and more work. We have 5 and 5 program. We're keeping him very, very busy, and so we're trying to keep up with those expenses. Municipal Court, a $24,000 increase there. Again, this typical pay and benefit changes. I have changed the judge's pay pursuant to your direction that you provided me. City Clerk, $13,000 increase. Again, typical pay increase between that three-person department. Then you have your typical inflation on top of that for various travel, communication, office expenses. Accounting and auditing, $189,000 difference. That is driven by the AFD, the Assistant Finance Director. We also have, as the City Council knows, we're transitioning to OpenGov cloud-based software. The City Council approved that here a couple meetings ago. Our current system is on a local server. It's failing. And as you know, this is the backbone of our operations, is our finances. And so we are moving to a cloud-based service. There's an annual expense for that. We also have a capital purchase of a flagpole and flags for City Hall. Some years ago, that stuff was either damaged or stolen. I don't know the exact story there, but we no longer have the flags for our City Hall. With the brand new branding, we'd like to buy some new flags to help fly the brand here. That's being covered through revenue surplus. Police, Department 31, a change of $413,000 increase. This is the employee changes there from that 2%, 8% sliding scale. We do have a number of capital purchases, radios, guns, electronic speed signs. If you see downtown, you have that speed sign. We want to buy more of those. They're very successful. Animal shelter dog runs, patrol office rehab, surveillance cameras. These are all being funded through revenue surplus. We also added some money to the budget for HVAC and roof repairs. We have an aging building. We're seeing mounting costs to maintain our HVAC system and our roof repairs. So we added some money to account for that. And we also have some new costs for our maintenance and service agreements. We've been trying to, given we've been losing officers, we have some vacancies. We've been trying to get smarter in our technology to help make the job more efficient. So we've added some new software along the last couple of years in order to make the job easier out in the field. So there are service agreement costs for that. We also have under ARPA the digiticket system. Whenever an officer pulls you over, they have the ticket writers. Those are now, 10 plus years old, and so we now need to replace those ticket writers. That's a vital service to what the police department does for our community. Dispatch improvements, covered awning for our auxiliary equipment. Those are all ARPA funded covered items. Fire Department number 32, an increase of $312,000. And primary reasons is employee pay and benefits. They have close to 70 employees, so that 2% COLA adds up pretty quickly when you spread across 70 employees. We also have radios, fire marshal vehicle, chief crews, and an assistant fire marshal, Kate Oates. They have aging out vehicles, and so we are looking to replace one of those vehicles this next year. To do that, given we have vacancies in the police department, we try to rotate 4 cars a year in the police department. I don't so much need 4 cars because I really can't staff them, and so we're going to replace 3 in police. Take that extra funding for that 4th car and apply it temporarily to the fire department to give us this fire marshal car. Then whenever we buy this, the money will go back to the police department budget to get back into a rotation of 4. Fingers crossed, because we have more employees at that point. And I'll note too, the ladder truck, the $1.5 million, you're not going to see that in a line item. That is not an expense account because that is now 2 years out. So, but we are going to segment that into a special CD within the general fund. But you won't see that in a line item in the budget. Community Development, Department number 40, is a decrease of $89,000. Primary reason, we had capital projects of a new restroom and farm market that is done, so that money doesn't need to be budgeted again. We also are transferring some of our CDBG match into the water fund to help fund a sewer project that we have planned for CDBG in that department. That's the primary reasons why there's a decrease, is our match grant is no longer needed in this budget, and our farmers market project is now complete. Main Street, Department 40-01, an increase of $60,000. This is primarily driven by our capital items, a downtown plaza sod and landscaping project. We've had some excitement downtown, the new lights, the new looks. There's fescue lighting coming to downtown. There is a growing need. It's being voiced by downtown visitors in order to make our downtown square more attractive, better grass, a better system, better landscaping. And so we've dedicated some revenue surplus in order to do a downtown plaza sod and landscaping project for next year. And please stop me at any point. Code enforcement, 40-02, increase of $60,000. Again, employee pay and benefits is driving part of this. We also have a capital purchase for a mower that's being paid for by revenue surplus. And we also add some more money to demo more houses and do more lot mowing. And that's a big push for the city council, big push for staff. We're trying to get more done, so we've added some more budget to those line items to get more houses and more houses demoed and more yards mowed, more delinquent yards mowed. We also, through ARPA, we're also looking to add a new truck for our code enforcement official. You've probably seen we have it's an old Ford Ranger we want to replace in order to give them a more up-to-date truck, and we also need a UTV for the abatement crew to do better abatement jobs out on open fields. Engineering, Department number 41, an increase of $119,000. This is primarily because for the first time in several years, we actually have a full-time engineer on staff. We've been trying for years, and so we've been budgeting that lower because there's no point in budgeting for a position I don't have. Well, Todd Mitke joined us this last year doing outstanding work for us. So this is the first year where we see the full impact of that item back into our salary line. We also have a capital item for a LiDAR survey. This is a pretty exciting item. This will do about 8 pictures per... It's 8 points per square meter. 8 points per square meter. This is in order to give us better topographical maps. This would be good for our businesses, for our developers, for our flood maps. So this is going to be available to all developers, free to our community. So this is an exciting project. This is done through flyovers, and it takes again a lot of pictures per so many square feet. And so this will give us good imaging for our different mapping and different development purposes. Public Works, a decrease of $3,000. This department is primarily the upfront staff in Public Works, so it's typical adjustments in pay and benefits and operational costs is why that's down $3,000. Parks, Rec, and Right-of-Way and Pool. This is a decrease of $14,000. Again, we had some capital purchases this year that are no longer present, so those have gone off the budget. Otherwise, they've had some increases in your operational funds. It's just the net between the two of those items going out the budget outweigh the items that are added to the budget, the $14,000 decrease there. We do have the ARPA, a work truck, and a tilt bed trailer for the work to be done. I think this is like a 1998 truck we're trying to replace. Street and Highways, number 46, increase of $800,000. Again, this is primarily that $1 million street mill and overlay project. You will see that item through this budget here. That's why this item is drastically higher than its current year. We do have some savings in other areas. That's why you see a decrease from $1 million only to $844,000 there. But we want to do mill and overlays, concrete work for street sidewalks and curb and gutters. Employee pay and benefits impacted this number. And overall, the changes, we had the North Lamar ISD project in this year's budget that's gone away. So that was a net change in the position for the budget for this department. ARPA funds are the truck chassis. They need a new truck chassis for their dump bed, for the dump truck.
Grayson, a
Yes.
question on that.
Yes.
We talked about the other departments and staffing on that. How are we with street staffing?
Very low in staffing there. We've had a hard time keeping staff in that department. Other public works have been doing better this last year, but street is probably the one we're suffering the most. Where's Michael at? That's one we're suffering the most in right now.
Is that because of salary?
Michael, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
It's hard to really say what it's from. I'm going to say majority of it is salary, because anybody knows at Public Works we work in all elements: rain, snow, water. It's been
Heat.
100 degrees outside, and especially in the street department and all my other departments too. You get out there on that hot asphalt and it reflects it. It's tough, especially when you go somewhere else and make more money sitting in air conditioner. So and just all over the board, it's hard to get people to work anywhere nowadays too. So
How many are we down?
in total,
Staff.
in total Public Works, I don't have an exact number. I'm gonna say I'm down around 30%.
That's improved.
Yes, we have improved in some departments, and I might be off on that too. I wasn't prepared for that question. I'm sorry. I know I'm down a lot, and a couple of departments are doing okay. I think I've only got one that's fully staffed, and that'd be my CIP department, and they're only a staffing of 3. So it's that one stays up there.
So you feel like the answer to that would be increase in salary?
It don't hurt.
It would help.
So yes, ma'am. I mean, I can't say for sure why I can't get people to walk in the door because, like I said, you look at places all over Lamar County and everybody has a help wanted sign in front of their place.
Right.
And I know other people have raised their pay, and I don't know why nobody's wanting to work anymore. But I can promise you that is one of the reasons. I can't say it's the main reason. I can't say for sure what all of them are, but I can promise you it does not hurt.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No, we don't have separate pays for street versus parks versus water and sewer maintenance. These are actually the same grades, M2, M3, M4. And so we just struggle with street. And so a lot of them, M2s across the board make the same pay, depending on what year of service you're in. But we don't have individualized, other than trash, we don't have individualized pay ranges for those positions there. So we just struggle with street department. Traffic and public lighting, number 48, increase of $30,000. Again, primary pay and benefits. We also added back an M2 position this current year. This will give them a 2-man crew. Right now, we only have 1 employee in that department, plus a half one with Edwin Samus. He's sanitation and traffic and lighting. So they're using M2 years past. It's kind of hard for that one employee to do the jobs that need to be done by themselves, whether it's putting out cones, whether it's doing signage. There's a lot of 2-man jobs, so we added back an M2 this year, and so that's why you see an increase in that department there. Garage number 49, just a change of $1,500. Is typical adjustments in payroll expenses. Just is why there's only a small change there. EMS number 54, this is a big change here. I want to explain this for a little bit, in change of almost $1 million. As you know, I've had a hard time correctly forecasting EMS pay. It is the most complicated payroll we have in the city with their shifts, with the way it works. It's very hard to accurately plan for that. We also had, unfortunately, some miscommunication in the last couple of years between what was to be budgeted for and what was actually happening in the field. That's being corrected as we speak. So this budget here gets us more in line with what's actually happening in the field. We have 4 trucks. We were not budgeting for 4 trucks, unfortunately. That was just not unfortunately happening. So that's this miscommunication. I'll take the blame for that. But this budget gets us more in line with what's actually happening, plus adding those 3 new full-time positions in order to give us full-time crews out in the field.
What's our revenue side on our EMS?
Go back to that slide. 3.8 million.
We're a million, we're gonna look, probably projecting $1 million deficit
Go back here.
or 900,000.
Roughly, yeah.
So, quick question. We're looking at adding 3 positions, and then there still looks like $1 million of overtime budgeted.
Yes.
So even with the 3 positions?
Yes, yeah, we were not actively budgeting overtime in the past. If you look at the historical numbers there, we've exceeded our overtime numbers every year without fail. And so, this number gets us back towards what's actually happening in the field.
So we don't think revenue is gonna be,
Yeah, adding the 3 positions doesn't increase revenue. That's not how that
no,
works.
but I'm
And so-
saying, in the last few years, it's been a deficit
Yes,
department. And it's not anything we're doing wrong, I don't think. I think it's just nature of the business, and we're not. I think hospitals have the same problem, but
Yeah.
they make money in the hospital to offset. That's what I'm saying.
we've increased our rates. We've added the debt collection service to help get bad debt collected. We added Emergicon, which is a more efficient process in order to get bills paid. So we've seen some dramatic gains the last couple of years, but there's still a deficit to provide the service. Yes. So that's the explanation for that $969,000 difference. There is the correcting for the overtime and salary lines, given what's actually happening in the field with our 3 new full-time positions as well. Again, part of that is offset by we've been paying for 3 part-time people every day, or 1 every day, 3 shifts. But this now goes from 15 hours part-time to 24 hours full-time. There's a net change in that. We also have our Medicare survey. As you recall, that's a one-time expense. Medicare came down and said, we now require you to do a survey to give us numbers so we can then change our rates. That's about a $40,000 expense right there that will go away after next year. And there's also rising costs for ambulances. Ambulances cost more now to purchase than they did before. Through the CARES funding, we have IV pump equipment, jump kits, some vent equipment in order to staff out all the trucks, and East Station flooring. Paris band, no change. Library, $75,000 increase there, again, primarily because of pay and benefits. Their capital items are their furniture replacement and roof repairs, which is, again, all through revenue surplus. We're not using reoccurring funds. We're using the one-time surplus from a couple of years ago. General expenses, this is where you'll find your LCAT expense, your health department. We do fund part of the health department. This is where you'll see a HOP payment go into the chamber out of. This is increased by $95,000 because this is the first year we're reflecting in our budget the TERS money going out. As you recall, last year we got our books in order, and as we were able to fund the TERS for the prior several years, about $62,000 is our budget estimate that will go to TERS this upcoming fiscal year. And of course, LCAT has also increased their costs on their side. So we have an increase of $95,000 primarily because of TERS and LCAT. IT, an increase of $83,000. We added a third IT person. Again, the work has exponentiated, and so we added a new person this last year doing outstanding work. We're in more places where we need to be at now with his work, adding him to the department. Capital items for next year, we need to go to Microsoft 365. This is an annual service. Right now, we have our current service is on our local service that's failing, it's aging out, it's no longer supported by the entities. This will take us to a cloud-based serviced product, so we can continue to have backed up, protected Microsoft systems for our staff. We also need to, under CARES, we're also going to replace our switch and server throughout much of the city. These switches and servers is what connects us in the network. They're all 10-plus years old. So those are well past their years of expectancy. So we need to replace those in the upcoming year. Airport, there's a decrease of $232,000 in this one. That's primarily because this current year we budgeted almost $250,000 as a match for the TechStop project. That's no longer need to be budgeted again. So I'm taking that off the budget. The money is there. They have delayed the project by a year, but we've already raised the money, so I don't need a budget for that 2 years in a row. So the money's already available for whenever that does come. That's why there's $232,000 changed in that budget.
Grayson, that is guaranteed to happen, though.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yeah, they have promised us it is guaranteed to
Make
happen.
sure.
So, Yeah, in fact, we are working right now, we're working with TxDOT to try to, I like to get the money out of my hands into theirs, because this is ARPA funds, and ARPA funds does have a shot clock, and so I want to get it off into the hands it needs to be at. So we've asked them to consider taking our money up front, one, to commit them, and two, it helps us with our ARPA shot clocks we're up against. So they're currently considering that and giving us documents to consider to get that money paid out soon. Warehouse, we're now moving into our water and sewer fund. This is Fund 10. So the first one is Department number 80. Warehouse is a change of $5,000. Again, just typical office expense changes there, employee pay and benefits. That is a department of 2 people. Water and sewer billing across the street, number 81, there's a change of $149,000 for this one. We are adding the new meter reader and the meter reader truck. Also, the meter reader can't walk on foot across town, so we didn't give them a truck to do their job. We also have employee pay and benefit changes here, and we also have we have an increase in credit card use expenses. We do pass it along to the customer, but we see the expense added to our budget, so there's a revenue that covers that. Water production, the water plant itself, a change of $283,000. As you saw the bids recently, the bids have gone up. So that's a big part for our chemical bids. The prices have increased for that. Electricity has gone up. Electrical prices have increased. So we do see a change in that for next fiscal year. And then our capital project is filtration plant replacement. So we're trying to do about 1 a year. We have about 8 or 9 cells, and we've been rehabbing about 1 a year. They're almost $300,000 in expense. And so these are vital parts of our treatment process, trying to rehabilitate all those cells one at a time. ARPA, we have electrician work truck. The truck right now is an aged truck, and we want to give him a new truck to do his services. Water distribution, number 83, an increase of $55,000. This is primarily employee pay and benefits, is primarily that comes from. That department is nearly, not fully staffed, but it's pretty close. So, what's that? Need 4. So we've seen some good gains in that department from a couple of years ago. We've managed to keep employees in that department. They're asking for a track loader and a mini excavator, as you saw them in my memo. We do have 2 crews. This will give both crews equipment so they can both do jobs at the same time, having to borrow each other. That slows down the process, slows down the work. This department is primarily focused on fixing water breaks and water leaks in places, and so it's nice having 2 crews working at the same time across town. CIP, you've seen their good work up at Lions Head, increase at $16,000, and again, primarily employee pay and benefits. Sewer maintenance, this is Danny Edwards' other hat that he wears, water side, now sewer side, increase $102,000, primarily because of our CDBG grant match that I mentioned earlier. That was money in the community development budget, and that's now in the sewer fund for that CDBG match for the sewer project. CIP for sewer, again, another hat that Paul Morgan wears. Again, $7,000 increase, employee pay and benefits, and then just everyday inflation and costs. Wastewater treatment, number 86. This is a plant that we are building a brand new one for. Again, changes in employee pay and benefits, and we also have some different equipment and tools that we have to work on and replace. Again, it's costly to replace those old rotary wheels we have out there. The capital items are auxiliary pump and UTV for the work they do out there at the plant. Lift station number 87, increase of $17,000. Primarily because we have some capital items. We're lift station fencing. TCQ needs us to improve our fencing around that facility. It's a security measure, so they asked us to replace that fencing. Our southeast lift station gate is too narrow to get our equipment through, and so this is going to widen that gate so we can actually get our big generator that we have there in and out easier. And we also have some portable pumps. Whenever the lift stations do go out of service, we have to have portable pumps on site so we don't have backups into people's homes. These pumps are, I believe they're 20 years old, I think, or was it 30? Sure where Kyle's at, but they were 20 or 30 years old, so it's time to replace those pumps. Lastly, the landfill and sanitation department, number 44, an increase of $128,000. Now, this one is a big asterisk behind this department here. I've gone ahead and budgeted a full year's worth of expenses. If we do outsource, this all changes, and so that will drastically change. I can't foresee that clearly at this point here, so I've gone ahead and budgeted for it. But as soon as we outsource, the revenue stops. a lot of the expenses stop. Not all the expenses, but a lot of the expenses stop. And so, but for now, I went ahead and budgeted for a full year's worth just for now. $120,000 change in there, again, employee pay and benefits, and then our landfill fees have increased for that department. All right. In conclusion here, I do believe that this proposed budget here hits all the key needs for our budget memo, for our priorities here, the council strategic plan, the employee pay and benefits, capital outlays. So this covers all of those needs. This is in line with SB 2. So with that, just take any questions or thoughts you have. We do need to discuss what you want to do next, whether you have more workshops, more meetings, if you want to ask questions tonight, if you want to meet again and talk about more questions. Otherwise, we do have some statutorily required meetings we have to also do as well. So I know that was a very poor job on my part. I threw a lot of information out there. There's so much to cover, and I know I did not do my best tonight explaining things. But there's a lot to cover there, so please ask questions of things you need clarification on.
Any questions? Any comments?
I'm good.
Well, I just want to say I couldn't be more proud to be the mayor of this city and to be a part of this council. I want to thank the employees, the city staff, department heads for all that you do on a daily basis. And Mr. Path, you're always very critical of yourself. But this brief is detailed. And I'm sure the citizens of Paris that are watching could understand honestly where the taxpayers' money are going and so forth. So I think you did an outstanding job, as I always do. You make it very easy to understand. And that's why you don't have that many questions. Of course, we see you on a daily basis and we talk offline, but I think you did an outstanding job, and to your staff and your team, we certainly appreciate you all for everything that you do. And it wouldn't work without the city, employees and staff, and we're all a team, we're all a family. So I'm very proud to be a part of that, and I wake up every day thankful for that. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. On behalf of the staff, we're very thankful for the work you all do. So representing your citizens, talking with us, working with us. It's been a pleasure working with this city council. So thank you for the work you are doing and you continue to do. So with that, we do have some, unless we want to have more workshops, what we would do next is at the end of August, we would have a meeting as part of our regular meeting. We are required under law to approve the budget for public hearings in September. That is a statutory requirement, and so we'll at least have that meeting. The budget can still change. You're not committing yourself tonight. You can still change the budget between now and those public hearings, and so don't think that if you don't change it today, it's forever stopped. So we can still do that, but obviously the later we go, the harder it gets to change and balance and so forth. So, but we will at least have that meeting on August 28th in order to finalize the budget and issue it for public hearings in September.
All right, if there are any further questions, I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We adjourn.